Why do some men feel emotionally drained after failed relationships, while the women seem to walk away stronger, freer, and even happier? Is it just a matter of perspective, or is something deeper at play? Arthur Schopenhauer, the master of pessimism, offered a brutally honest and controversial warning to men about women, suffering, and the nature of love itself. This isn't about hatred, it's about truth. And Schopenhauer's final warning might just explain why your pain becomes their power. Arthur Schopenhauer was not known for offering comfort. He was known for exposing brutal truths that society often hides beneath romantic ideals and polite fictions. When he turned his attention to the subject of women, his analysis wasn't tender or poetic. It was cutting, controversial, and, to some, even offensive. But behind the sharp language lay a consistent philosophy rooted in biological realism and psychological observation. In his essay On Women, Schopenhauer writes with a kind of cold detachment, dissecting the nature of women not as individuals with unique personalities, but as a class, an archetype shaped by evolutionary necessity. He believed that women were fundamentally different from men, not just physically, but intellectually and spiritually. To him, the idealization of women, the pedestal many men place them on, was one of the greatest mistakes of modern civilization. He didn't believe in the romantic notion of women as nurturing, all-loving beings who complete the souls of men. That, he argued, was a dangerous illusion. In fact, he called romantic love a trick of nature, something designed not for happiness, but for reproduction. Women, he said, are not driven by philosophical curiosity or artistic longing, like men often are. They are grounded, pragmatic, survival-oriented. While men get lost in dreams of love and loyalty, women remain rooted in what serves their future and security. Schopenhauer believed that men often project their inner ideals onto women. They assume that women love like they do, suffer like they do, and are loyal in the same way. But this is a tragic misunderstanding. According to him, women are not designed to love unconditionally. They are designed to choose, assess, and move forward with whomever offers them the best odds of survival and reproduction. That is not cruelty, it is biology. But for men who are unaware of this dynamic, it often feels like betrayal. In Schopenhauer's view, the emotional pain men experience after giving everything to a woman, time, energy, love, money, only to be discarded, is not an accident. It is the natural result of misunderstanding the fundamental rules of the game. Women are not moral monsters. They are simply playing by a set of instincts that men refuse to acknowledge. And in this refusal, men set themselves up for suffering. This brings us to a disturbing but powerful idea, that women can sometimes thrive in male pain. Schopenhauer didn't say this to demonize women. He said it to wake men up. In many relationships, men are encouraged, both culturally and emotionally, to suffer in silence, to give endlessly, to prove their love through sacrifice. But this sacrifice is not always rewarded with loyalty or appreciation. Instead, it is often interpreted as weakness. And weakness, Schopenhauer warned, is unattractive to the very person you're trying to please. Here lies the paradox. When a man is in pain, struggling, or emotionally broken, the modern romantic narrative suggests that his partner will rush to his side, uplift him, and share in his burden. But reality, as Schopenhauer saw it, often tells a different story. Many women, consciously or not, interpret a man's suffering as a signal of failure, a loss of status, control, or power. And when this happens, she doesn't feel compassion. She feels distance. Women, Schopenhauer believed, are biologically wired to seek strength. Not just physical strength, but emotional resilience, social dominance, and a capacity to lead and protect. When a man is consumed by emotional pain, especially pain caused by her, it can invert the polarity of the relationship. Instead of seeing him as a protector, she now sees him as needing protection. And in that moment, something shifts. Attraction withers, respect vanishes, and the same man who gave her everything now finds himself abandoned. But why would she thrive in his pain? Because it reaffirms something deep within her instincts. If a woman ends a relationship and the man collapses, it validates her decision. It shows that she was the stronger one, that she chose wisely by leaving. It confirms her own rising power and independence. His suffering in a twisted way becomes proof of her growth. She is no longer tethered to his emotional fragility. She is free, and in that freedom, she flourishes. Think about the countless stories of men who spiral after heartbreak, while the woman seems to glow, thrive, and evolve. It's not necessarily because she was cruel, it's because she was prepared. Schopenhauer would argue that women are inherently better at emotional survival. They are more adaptable, more pragmatic, and less likely to cling to idealistic visions of love. While the man mourns what was lost, she is already building what's next. This dynamic creates an emotional asymmetry that many men don't anticipate. They believe that their pain will earn them sympathy, closeness, or a renewed connection. But in reality, their pain often repels the very person they're trying to win back. And worse, it can energize her, as if shedding him gave her room to grow. His collapse becomes her rebirth. Schopenhauer's analysis may seem cold, even cruel, but it is rooted in a philosophical desire to see the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. He believed that once a man understands this dynamic, once he stops projecting idealized emotions onto women, he becomes immune to emotional destruction. He suffers, yes, but he no longer begs for love that was based on a lie. He reclaims his power, not by punishing women, but by refusing to be broken by their departure. To Schopenhauer, the lesson is clear: suffering is unavoidable. But if you suffer blindly, idealistically, you become a pawn. If you suffer with awareness, you become a philosopher. The choice, as always, is yours. Love, to most people, feels like the highest and most sacred of human experiences. It's seen as the source of our greatest joys, the foundation of families, and the purpose of poetry, music, and sacrifice. But to Arthur Schopenhauer, love was something far less noble. It was, in his view, a biological deception, an illusion crafted not for happiness, but for reproduction. Schopenhauer called romantic love a trick of nature, a force that hijacks the mind, distorts the senses, and pushes two people together not for their benefit, but for the continuation of the species. This perspective changes everything. What if love isn't about you being happy or fulfilled? What if it's about creating the next generation, no matter the emotional cost to you? Schopenhauer believed that when people fall in love, they often feel like they're acting freely, like they've found the one, like fate itself brought them together. But from nature's perspective, there is no such thing as the one. There is only someone with the right traits to ensure strong offspring. Everything else, romance, attraction, butterflies in the stomach, is a manipulation, a baited hook. This is what makes love, especially for men, so dangerous. Men often approach love with ideals: loyalty, devotion, protection. They want to build something lasting, but they fail to realize that nature doesn't care about permanence. Nature cares only about what works, what survives. And in this brutal biological game, women have evolved as master selectors. They don't always choose the kindest man, the most generous, or the most artistic. They choose strength, however it's defined in their environment. That strength could mean power, confidence, status, or even cold dominance. It all depends on what gives their offspring the best chance to thrive. Schopenhauer believed that men delude themselves by thinking love is mutual in the same way, that if they pour their heart out, it will be reciprocated with the same depth and fire. But in reality, love is rarely symmetrical. One person almost always loves more. One person almost always gives more. And in many cases, the one who gives more is the one who suffers most. He saw this imbalance not as a flaw in human relationships, but as the natural order of things. The man often becomes emotionally invested. He begins to see the woman not just as a partner, but as the meaning of his life. He believes he's found someone who understands him, accepts him, and will grow old with him. But from nature's cold viewpoint, once his reproductive value has been used, once the possibility of offspring has been secured or rejected, the emotional intensity begins to fade. The biological drive is gone, and the love that seemed eternal begins to feel conditional, fragile, and transactional. Schopenhauer pointed out that women, being more intimately connected to the cycle of reproduction, are often more pragmatic about love. They can detach when it no longer serves their interests. They can move on, rebuild, and reattach to someone else who offers a better future. This isn't necessarily calculated or malicious. It's instinctual. It's adaptive. In fact, it's a form of emotional survival. Men, on the other hand, are more likely to anchor their identity in the relationship. Their desire to protect and provide can become a psychological cage. When the woman leaves or loses interest, it doesn't just feel like heartbreak, it feels like annihilation. Everything they invested emotionally and spiritually collapses. And this collapse is not just painful, it is existential. This is why Schopenhauer argued that love is not the beautiful gift we imagine it to be. It is a force that uses us. It seduces, ensnares, and then abandons us when its purpose is fulfilled. The very moment you think you've found a soulmate, you may in fact be walking into a trap laid by your own biology. And because men are often the ones who fall hardest, they become the most devastated when love turns cold. From this perspective, it's easy to see how power dynamics shift. If a man enters a relationship believing in eternal romance, while the woman subconsciously operates according to instinctual calculations of security, dominance, and strength, then their emotional realities will never truly align. She is not trying to hurt him. She is simply following the silent logic of nature. But he, interpreting her behavior through the lens of idealistic love, is caught off guard. When she withdraws her affection, when she becomes distant or critical, he feels as though the universe itself has betrayed him. Schopenhauer insisted that love was never about fairness. It was about nature's interests, not yours. When a woman loses attraction, it often signals something biological, that the man no longer appears strong, useful, or upwardly mobile. This might sound harsh, but in the grand scheme of evolution, it's what has kept humanity going. The female chooses, the male proves, and if he fails the test, consciously or unconsciously, he is discarded. But there's a deeper philosophical point here. When you understand love as a biological strategy, rather than a divine miracle, you stop expecting it to fulfill your soul. You stop chasing after women who see you as replaceable. You begin to see the game for what it is, a competition for survival, masked in the language of poetry. Schopenhauer's warning was never meant to create hatred. It was meant to create awareness. Awareness of the rules you were never taught. Awareness of the forces operating beneath your feelings. Awareness of the gap between what you think love is and what it actually is in practice. Because when you see love clearly, not as salvation, but as strategy, you are no longer vulnerable to the same kind of pain. You are no longer confused when someone who once adored you suddenly grows cold. You stop wondering, what did I do wrong? and start asking, what changed in the game? That shift, from confusion to clarity, is what Schopenhauer offers. Not comfort, not hope, but clarity. And sometimes, that's the only protection you'll ever get. There's a peculiar and painful phenomenon that many men experience, but rarely talk about. After a breakup or emotional separation, the woman seems to thrive. While the man spirals, lost in regret and sadness, the woman radiates a strange, unsettling energy, almost as if she's been reborn. She changes her hair, updates her wardrobe, floods social media with smiling selfies, and proclaims her newfound freedom. From the outside, it looks like she has been liberated, not from pain, but from you. To the man, it's devastating. He sits alone in a quiet room replaying memories, wondering what went wrong, questioning every word, every action. He feels discarded, like something used and tossed away. His identity, once fused with the idea of us, now crumbles into silence. Meanwhile, she is out with friends, dancing under neon lights, attracting new attention, glowing with a sense of self-empowerment. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this pattern long before modern psychology gave it a name. He understood that in many cases, a woman's flourishing after a man's downfall isn't coincidental. It's part of a deeper, biological and psychological process. He didn't frame this as malicious behavior. Instead, he saw it as an extension of the cold, unsentimental nature of life itself. In nature, nothing is wasted. Everything is fuel, even a man's suffering. When a relationship ends, and especially when the woman initiates the separation, it is often because she has outgrown the emotional dynamic. Not always, but often, women emotionally exit the relationship long before they physically leave. They begin preparing, internally, socially, and mentally, for life beyond the man. So by the time the breakup occurs, they are already 10 steps ahead. She's packed emotionally. He hasn't even started folding the first shirt. This creates an illusion. It seems like she is heartless or unbothered. But in reality, she simply already processed the pain you are just beginning to feel. And yet, something darker is often at play. Your collapse can validate her decision to leave. The more you break down, the more she feels justified. The more you beg, plead, or fall apart, the more convinced she becomes that you were not the strong, masculine figure she needed after all. It reinforces the belief that walking away was the right move. There is a twisted sense of empowerment some women experience in that moment, not because they enjoy your pain, but because your pain highlights their independence. It proves to her, and perhaps to others, that she is not dependent, that she is capable of choosing herself, even if it means stepping over someone else's emotional wreckage. In this moment, she is reborn, not from love, but from detachment. This is where Schopenhauer's dark realism becomes chillingly relevant. He argued that, far from being governed by conscious ethics, many of our emotional behaviors are rooted in evolutionary necessity. Women, he said, are designed by nature to seek optimal mates, and part of that design involves the ability to detach when the circumstances no longer favor their survival or the future of their potential offspring. When a man is no longer perceived as strong, valuable, or upwardly mobile, her instincts begin to shift. Even if she once loved you, even if she once cried for you, her biology may now see you as a liability rather than an asset. Her emotional energy, instead of trying to rebuild what's broken, is redirected into something new, into herself, into her future. And ironically, this redirection is often fueled by the very pain you're experiencing. Your breakdown becomes the compost in which her transformation grows. And what about the man? What becomes of him when he watches the person he once protected, adored, and gave everything to rise from the ashes of his suffering, with renewed strength and beauty. He is left with a bitter, disorienting truth. The more he suffers, the more she shines. This realization is not just heartbreaking, it can be soul-crushing. Especially for men who built their identities around being providers, protectors, or emotionally reliable partners. But here lies Schopenhauer's most important, if uncomfortable, lesson. The suffering you experience is not senseless. It is your confrontation with truth, with reality, unmasked. And this confrontation offers something that no romantic fantasy ever can: wisdom. This brings us to the final warning. The core of Schopenhauer's message was not hate women. It was understand women. Stop imagining them as celestial beings sent to complete you. Stop projecting your emotional ideals onto people who are governed by different instincts and values. See them for what they are: human beings, shaped by nature, trying to survive and thrive, just like you. But here's the part men often miss. If you don't understand the game, you will be destroyed by it. Not because women are cruel, but because you chose to remain blind. You chose to love blindly, sacrifice blindly, and suffer blindly. And nature does not forgive blindness. When you idealize women, you lose your power. When you worship love, you sacrifice your self-respect. When you ignore the harsh truths about human relationships, you become prey. Schopenhauer's warning was simple: don't lose yourself in the fantasy. Because when the fantasy collapses, and it always does, you will be left with nothing but pain and confusion. But if you listen, truly listen, to what he's saying, you will emerge stronger, wiser, sharper. You will learn to love without worship, to care without dependency, to give without losing your identity. You will stop measuring your worth through the eyes of another. Let her thrive if she must. Let her walk away. Let her glow. Let her reinvent herself. That is her path. Yours is different. Yours is not to chase or plead. Yours is to understand, to rise, and to never again offer your soul to someone who hasn't earned it. Schopenhauer's final warning is not a call for despair. It's a call for awakening, a call to reclaim your mind from illusions, your heart from dependency, and your soul from betrayal. Love will still hurt, but with your eyes wide open, it will never again destroy you.